Reporting for KTN, my name is Bentura Komboka.
Questions are now emerging over the sudden suspension of the planned Matatu strike after a high-level meeting between President William Ruto and selected transport sector stakeholders in Mombasa. While the government says the talks helped avert a nationwide transport crisis following rising fuel prices, a section of the Matatu operators and industry stakeholders now claim they were deliberately locked out of the crucial negotiations. Some leaders left behind in Nairobi are accusing those who attended the meeting of betrayal, alleging that only individuals seen as easily compromised were handpicked to represent the sector. Grace Nganga reports.
Fresh divisions are emerging in the transport sector after President William Ruto hosted selected Matatu sector leaders in Mombasa for talks aimed at diffusing tensions over rising fuel prices and operational costs. But as the government celebrated the suspension of the strike, a section of stakeholders left behind in Nairobi are now accusing some of the leaders who attended the meeting of betrayal.
Why are you going to meet the president without a memorandum about Miati? Are we going to place a to plan a place and worship? Those necessary main characters there, Vikoro Karagasha, Vikoro Kabana, Vikoro Kusha, they are traitors outright.
At the center of the storm is the growing question: who exactly was chosen to meet the president and why? KTN understands the first sign of divisions emerged on Monday, shortly after the press conference.
Some were called after we left the same night, and they were called by Waziri and Tumbi to have a prolonged meeting. Whatever they agreed on that night was delivered on Tuesday morning. Before the 10 a.m. meeting, they had been called to Harambe House.
Just imagine
Some stakeholders now claim that after Tuesday's meeting, an agreement had initially been reached to form a broad council representing different factions within the industry that will travel to Mombasa for talks with the president. Some stakeholders now allege that individuals considered too vocal or unwilling to compromise were deliberately excluded from the Mombasa talks, while leaders seen as more friendly to the government were handpicked to represent the sector.
So even that council that was being formed to go to talk to the president, it was actually done in a lot of secrecy. The governor called his choir members, the same guys who had been compromised on that day.
Interestingly, among those reportedly left out was Kennedy Kaunda, the Matatu sector official who recently became a viral sensation after publicly contradicting CS's Opiyo Wandayi of Energy Docket and Davis Chichir heading the transport ministry. His absence from the high-level talks is now fueling speculation among sections of operators who believe outspoken critiques of the government were intentionally sidelined.
All those officials to produce the logbook, the ones who are left out. We want to eliminate cartels in this business.
So sasa ni kama kuna wenye walichuna wakaonekana wenye wako na misimamo wasipewe. Kwa sababu sasa unajua sasa the moment kuna discussion kama hiyo, watu wataona hapa kuna watu tunaweza compromise.
The fallout has now triggered calls for the removal of Matatu Owners Association chairperson Albert Karakacha, with critics accusing him of failing to unite the sector and presiding over what they describe as a divided and compromised leadership.
There will be a meeting probably next week to bring all the legitimate chairpersons in the industry and investors together so that we chart a new way forward. And one of those agendas is to remove these corrupt leaders.
And as accusations of betrayal, exclusion and secret negotiations intensify, questions are now emerging over whether the strike was truly resolved through consensus or whether dissenting voices were simply shut out of the room. Grace Nganga, KTN.
Days after speculation was rife over the whereabouts of Professor Kithure Kindiki,